Yeah, didn't expect that title, did you? I legitimately think that was a good showcase. I mean, it was essentially what the E3 presentation probably would have been, but we get it even closer to release, which is probably a good thing because that means that's a lot less wait for, the games they showcase, right? Now, it's not perfect. I mean, there's a lot of problems I have with this whole thing, to be honest, which, of course I do. This is me we're talking about. But I do want to stay positive about this, because I gotta say, while I definitely don't think you should buy a PS5 at launch, because I don't think you should buy any console at launch, I never have. Unless you're the type of person who, you're an early adopter, you have to have stuff new. In which case, I'm not going to convince you not to buy a PS5. Just go ahead and do it. I mean, honestly, this is probably the best deal that you're going to get for a console. I don't know, probably forever. It blows my mind, and I'm gonna break it down a little later, because I think I'll just go through the presentation as it's presented and just sum it up for you in case you don't want to see it, and just give my impressions. So let's begin. So first off, they show Final Fantasy XVI, which real Final Fantasy fans are gonna be upset that it's another action RPG, because of course they want to reach as broad an audience as possible. So, of course, they're sticking with an action RPG, even though there were a lot of complaints about Final Fantasy 15. I never played it, honestly, because, yeah, it didn't look great. It looked like Kingdom Hearts combat, but way worse. And I really enjoy Kingdom Hearts. I'll talk about Kingdom Hearts eventually, even though Kingdom Hearts 3 was yet another disappointment. But I guess the good news about it is that it's back to medieval fantasy. That's good. I hope there's also some sci-fi-ish stuff still thrown in there. Final Fantasy X is the only one I've completed, which some people are going to be upset about that for multiple reasons, I'm sure. And look, I tried playing Final Fantasy VI. It's too dated, man. I can't do it. I can't fucking do it. I'm just going to leave it at that. But as for Final Fantasy VII, still haven't played it. So, of course, I haven't played the remake either. So, no opinion on that. I'll try playing Final Fantasy VII someday. There's just too much on my plate right now. I'll get to it next year, I'm sure. So then they showed Spider-Man, Miles Morales. Yeah, it looks good. It's more Spider-Man. I liked Spider-Man. I think it's one of the better sandbox games. I think I basically said that exact quote every time I brought it up. But it had a very fun variation of the Batman system that was more forgiving, but more fun, if you ask me. Like, I know there were a few people who commented on my on my Gotham Knights news video or whatever, who were saying, like, the free flow combat system was perfect, blah, 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 in Arkham Knight, blah, blah. I don't care. I don't agree. It was just kind of annoying. The perfectionism of it just got annoying eventually. Whereas Spider-Man's was much more open-ended, which I've always find it more fun when the system is open-ended, like in Shadow of Mordor or Ghost of Tsushima, right? So Spider-Man was like that. Spider-Man actually probably is my favorite version of the Batman system. So it's more of that. Miles Morales has cool paralytic venom powers, and he can turn invisible too. Those are things he could do in the comics for those who enjoyed the Ultimate Universe, and more recently now when he joined Earth 616 or whatever. For anyone who still reads comics out there. I don't know if any of my fans read comics. Comics are shit these days, so you probably shouldn't, but maybe you do. So yeah, I don't know. I don't have much else to say really. Miles' mother being like a politician, I don't know if that's in the comics, but it's kind of, the whole thing's a little cringy. There's like a little cringe line in there about teachers and politicians. Didn't like it. Might play you that right here, but
still hard to think of Mom as a politician. She's been a teacher my whole life.
Similar skill sets, right? Corralling people, educating them, making sure they don't throw things at each other.
Other than that, though, yeah, it looked fun. It was a cool set piece. He had the iconic hold the bridge together type of thing. Spider-Man always does shit like that, like in the movies and stuff, where they're stopping a train or holding the boat together. You guys have seen that. It's iconic at this point. But yeah, that's a launch title. So that is something you can be excited about if you are going to buy a PS5. Okay, then we have the Harry Potter game. So the Harry Potter game is actually kind of interesting. I don't like Harry Potter. I'm just gonna be like upfront with you. Even when I was a kid, I enjoyed the movies. I was never like one of those normie nerds. I'll just call them normie nerds, because like really Harry Potter was like one of the first times I saw like the birth of like that normie nerd fad. You know what I mean? Like obviously when we think of those fake nerds, we probably think of more like the late 2000s, 2010s and stuff like that was the birth of it. I think it started with Harry Potter, if I'm being honest. I think so many normies read Harry Potter as a kid that it really led to like that being as mainstream as Star Wars, you know? And, you know, yeah, this makes me sound like a hipster, but my point is like when I think of wizards and high fantasy, you know, I think more of Lord of the Rings, or really just any like Dungeons and Dragons-y type of thing. Wizards are supposed to be like god tier powerful once you get to a certain level, right? They have huge staffs, robes, fucking, you know, wise as fuck. Yeah, you know what I mean, right? Kind of a stereotype. But with Harry Potter, I don't know, it just seems so normalized that being a wizard wasn't really that interesting. And I understand that's part of the appeal, right? Is like anybody could be a wizard, except you can't really, because I mean they make fun of like mudbloods and shit, right, in there with the, you know, the mixed race wizards essentially. And you know, the muggles can't even see any magic shit anyway. So it's like, it's not really anybody could be a wizard. You have to hope that you're born with the right bloodline, which is very anime, to be honest. I don't like that either. But anyway, so, okay, my opinions of Harry Potter aside, the trailer looks pretty interesting. It's set far enough in the past that, you know, they could tell their own story, at least in the Harry Potter universe. So I don't know, if you're a fan of Harry Potter, maybe it's good, but it was all CGI stuff. No comment, really. There's no specific release date. It was just 2021. So again, another reason you shouldn't buy a PS5 at launch. Alright, then they had the Call of Duty trailer. Who cares? It's Call of Duty. It's, you know, you can also buy that last gen or PC or whatever. So it really doesn't advertise for PS5 at all. And yeah, I mean, going back to like the Cold War is cool, but I gotta say the footage they showed was not very Cold War at all. Like a remote control car with explosives. Did they even use those in the 80s? Like this is supposed to be 1981, and they use an RC car with C4 on it or whatever. It's like, that's a lot more Modern Warfare, I feel like. I don't know, I suppose I could Google it and be like, well, one time this special ops group did blah blah blah, and it's like, okay. But I mean, like, you know, this is what, only 7 years after Vietnam? You don't really think of, like, you know, that kind of tech. You know what I'm saying? I don't know, maybe I'm nitpicking. That being said, you know, the campaign's probably only going to be 5 hours anyway. That doesn't sell a $60 game. You're in it for the multiplayer. So the trailer was kind of pointless, I guess. I don't know. They said there would be zombies too. Of course there's going to be zombies. Let's hope the zombies is good, I guess. If you're interested in COD, I don't know. I'm undecided because I actually bought Modern Warfare. So maybe I'll buy this one. Probably not. Maybe. Then we have Resident Evil 8, which is a big deal to me as, you know, the Resident Evil fan guy. I mean, I'm a huge fan. But regardless, this, I actually don't have too much to say on it. I wish I did. But it's clearly a direct sequel to Resident Evil 7 because the main character is still the same guy, Ethan, whatever his face. I forgot. He, I guess, is in some European village place that is very reminiscent of Resident Evil 4. Gee, I wonder if they'll reuse assets for the Resident Evil 4 remake. I guarantee they will. I fucking guarantee they will. I know what you're doing, Capcom. But regardless, it looks like, it looks a lot more like Outlast 2 or some like type of hide and seek horror game more than even like Resident Evil 7, you know, which that could be a bad thing. But again, we haven't really seen gameplay, so it's hard to say. All I gotta say is it looks beautiful. The setting is aesthetically pleasing without a doubt, and I'm glad to see like a castle done in an actual horror setting, because the castle in Resident Evil 4 was not horror. It was amazingly over the top and fun, had so much cool areas in it, but it wasn't horror at all. So to see it being done with horror could be pretty cool, actually. So, yeah, I mean, I hold out hopes that Resident Evil 8's good. Not much else to say, really. Again, 2021 is the release date, so I'm guessing fall 2021. So, yeah, fuck. If you take away anything from this video, don't buy a PS5 till next year. That's the takeaway, even though this is a great presentation. Alright, then there's Deathloop, which is Arcane Studios' new game. Well, I haven't talked about it yet because I just haven't gotten to it, really. I haven't talked about any stealth games yet, which is kind of disappointing because I like stealth games. I gotta find a way to talk about one of them. But Dishonored Death of the Outsider was another one of those games kind of invaded with modern politics, which was a really disappointing way to close out the Dishonored universe, you know, because I don't think we're getting another one after that. But there was a lot of like kind of forced diversity type of bullshit in there, and like some implied story points I didn't like, and like the main character's a lesbian. Yeah, she's a black lesbian, so that's already pretty high on the progressive stack. That should already like give you like, you should start asking questions about the ideology of the game at that point. But she was a known character in universe. She was from Dishonored 1's DLC, Billy Lurk, right? So anyway, but then they released Prey, I think the year after that? Or did Prey come out before? Honestly, I don't know. I don't remember. It's all starting to blur together. But Prey was actually good. Despite also having a lot of diversity shit, it didn't really come up in the plot at all. So I thought Prey was a good game. Like, even though it had nothing to do with the original Prey, it was a good game in its own right. So hopefully Deathloop is good. It's hard to really tell, like, what they're doing with the game. I don't know if it's supposed to be like roguelike, or if you die, you have to start the game over again, which they did with Prey's expansion, so maybe this is like that. But I don't know, it looks very stylistic and could be good. In Q2 2021, it's not a release date, but at least you have an idea of when it's coming out. Right, then they had Oddworld Soulstorm. Never played any of the Oddworlds. I always meant to get to it. I had a friend in high school who loved those games, and he talked to me about them all the time. Both the original ones that were like this, that are basically puzzle games, and also Stranger's Wrath, which was an FPS. And yeah, I mean, he loved all those games. I never played any of them, so if somehow you listen to this, sorry, still haven't played it like 10 years later. I'll get to it eventually. There's a new Five Nights at Freddy's. Yeah, I don't know. If it's a real game, that could be cool, you know, like, because the original games, it was a cool concept, you know, took the internet by storm, started Markiplier's career, which is crazy. I mean, he's like at 30 million subscribers now. Yeah, I wonder why. But regardless, but if it's an actual, like, hide-and-seek style horror game where you can actually move around and explore an area, that'd be sweet. Because I'd love to see that done with the animatronics, and I haven't played a good one in a while. Amnesia, The Dark Descent, despite being like, you know, the first huge like hide-and-seek horror game, is still the best one. Yeah, I'm gonna say it. And you know, that launched PewDiePie's career. Everyone knows who PewDiePie is. But yeah, fucking Amnesia: The Dark Descent is an amazing game, truly. Despite it, you know, being associated with PewDiePie, you know, I don't hate PewDiePie. I'm just saying that if that gives you negative feelings, don't associate it with Amnesia. Amnesia is good. So yeah, it's another console exclusive, this Five Nights at Freddy's, so that's stupid, but at least I can cover it on PC, right, if I don't have PS5 by then, if it's worth playing. There was DMC5 Special Edition. You know, not much to comment there, except that's another franchise I haven't played. It's sad because I love Platinum games, so like I feel like Hideki Kamiya would be disappointed in me because that's like his, you know, that's his baby. At least I don't know if he worked on the first two. I know he worked on Devil May Cry 3, which is the good one, you know, right? So yeah, never played any of them. And that's a launch title too, the special edition of DMC5. So yeah, I don't know, that's something. Demon's Souls remake. This is the big one. You know, guys, Souls fan. I'm just as big a Souls fan as a Resident Evil fan, and oh my god, Demon's Souls remake looks so good. I am not a graphics whore by any stretch, But oh god, the aesthetic is so fucking good. Oh my, like, I know it sounds like I'm hamming it up, but basically they mostly just showed off the tutorial, right? Which in the original game was skippable, so I wonder if they make it skippable in this as well. I never skipped it because you can kill the boss at the end in the original game, which I didn't bring up in the review. I should have. But that's like a good test, like if you're actually good at the game. Like if you replay the game, you can really easily kill the Vanguard, like without even getting hit, pretty much. I think I still have my footage. I can show that here. And you got like a bunch of bonus items. You got an extra Vanguard soul if you wanted to use that to make whatever thing you make with that. I don't remember. But then they show like little snippets of like other parts of the game, and like Armor Spider looks great. They seem to have changed his like flame tunnel mechanic, which is, I like that. That he spits oil or whatever now. And yeah, I don't know, dude. It looks so good. It looks so good. The only thing I wish they'd showed, I want to see Valley of Defilement. Because Valley of Defilement, like, you can see like the graphical fidelity increase in between Demon Souls and Dark Souls the most when you compare Valley of Defilement and Blighttown. Because Blighttown looks like way better. Like Valley of Defilement, the second area specifically, is just a giant empty swamp. There's like nothing in there, man. And the draw distance is like 20 feet. So they can make that way better in the remake. They can make that so good. But yeah, no, we saw a lot of great stuff. I'm so excited. The only thing that sucks, there's no release date, man. No release date. So I'll say it. This will be the second last time I say it in this video, I promise. Don't buy a PS5 yet. Unless you have to, like, unless you really, really want to. Like, I'll say, this is what I'll say. The only way that you should buy a PS5 is if you have to play Cyberpunk 2077 at launch in the best way possible and you don't have a gaming PC. That's the only way. Like, if all you have is a PS4 or Xbox One and you want the best Cyberpunk experience, I don't think that's worth $300 to $500 by any stretch, but yeah, maybe it is to you. That's literally it. That's the only way I can see it. Then they showed like this PS Plus collection. Basically, this is the pad out launch, because launch is, again, it's looking bare, just like this gen was. And so they ported over the best games, and I guess if you have PS Plus, you can play any of them. That's what it seems like, right? And pretty much everyone's gonna have PS Plus because you have to now, all this gen, to play anything online. So yeah, that's something. But yeah, the important thing to note though, and this is something that you're gonna see multiple times in this presentation, is that at the end of the trailers, not only do most of them not have specific release dates, which is my main reason why you shouldn't buy a PS5 right now, because launch is looking pretty bare. Honestly, Cyberpunk 2077 is carrying the launch for both these consoles. Like, if we're being real right now. Of course, the Spider-Man Miles Morales is also coming out around launch. So, you know, people like Spider-Man will like that, I'm sure. It looks pretty good. That trailer comes a little bit later in the presentation. So what worries me though, so you're going to see this console exclusive. This is the new bullshit marketing crap. I'm going to try and keep this brief because, again, I have a problem with keeping things brief. But there is a very important distinction between a true exclusive, which is either developed by a first-party company that the console maker they own the studio, whatever you want to call it, right? Sony, Nintendo, and Microsoft's first-party studios. Those are true exclusives, you know, funded by them, made for the console, to sell the console. There's nothing wrong with that, no matter what, like, PC Master Race tells you, because something has to sell a console, right? So I don't have a problem with that. I love exclusives. Exclusives made me fall in love with gaming when I was young. You know, it was part of, like, the console wars when you're a kid. You know, fun stuff, right? But this, what Sony's doing here, is no better than what Epic is doing on PC. In fact, I would argue it's actually worse than what Epic's doing on PC, because if you're a PC gamer, you can always install Epic Game Store. Like, you can do it. Like, there's plenty of people who will boycott it out of principle because it's a Chinese company and all that, and there's plenty of good reasons to stay away from anything that Tencent owns, right? And yeah, what they're doing is pretty horrible. For those who are not informed, what Epic is doing is they are bribing companies to not put their game on Steam. That's what they're doing, essentially. So Sony is bribing companies to not put third-party games on Xbox. Like, are you fucking kidding me, man? Come on. Sony, really? Like, people are already mad when Sony pays for these weird exclusives. Like, for example, in the Avengers game that no one cares about that came out that's, a piece of shit or whatever. They paid for Spider-Man to be exclusive to PS4. Really? Fucking really? And they also have, like, timed exclusivity for costumes or whatever, which is the same thing Sony's paid for Call of Duty all this gen, right? And I think last gen, Microsoft did some of that as well, where they had paid for some timed exclusive stuff. It's like, this is an anti-consumer practice, without a doubt. It's just anti-consumer. It's essentially about as dirty as you can get in the console space, to make sure that the consumer doesn't buy your competitor. Because the thing is that they know Xbox has a slight upper hand, which we're going to get to pricing, because pricing is the most important factor in this, and actually where I think Sony is dominating in one specific area. But also, Microsoft has the upper hand because they're releasing a $300 console. Now, that's $300 with like a huge asterisk. And I'll look up the specs after this, maybe I'll just put it on screen right here. But the Xbox Series S is weaker than the Xbox Series X. That is a problem. That is a serious problem. Because no matter how much people talk about it, consoles are not PCs, okay? We do not need developers like trying to optimize for all these multiple different variations of the platform. And, if you buy the Xbox Series S, you're getting an inferior, performance at launch, at the beginning of a generation, right? Now, granted, I think it's still it is still a steal for the price because you can't build a PC that good for $300. So the Xbox Series S, like if you're considering it, you need a budget option. It's still a good price, like without a doubt. I can't deny that for a second. But the biggest problem with consoles is that because the hardware is advancing so fast, things become obsolete much faster. Like the PS4 and Xbox One, especially the Xbox One, were already barely like mid-tier PCs back when they released at the end of 2013. Now, this gen, the consoles are actually releasing ahead of the curve. Okay, so I'm just going to give you for reference my PC that I built last year, right? Okay, it's all AMD shit, right? Ryzen 5 3600 is my CPU, which, I don't want to give you the nitty-gritty details because I'm pretty sure most of you guys are console fans. But that was basically last year the hottest mid-tier CPU. And my graphics card is the RX 5700, also AMD. There's also the XT version of that, which was slightly more powerful, but I got like a good Black Friday deal on mine. The details don't matter. The point is that those were both like the best value mid-tier PC options, right? So my PC is actually probably more powerful than most gaming PCs, even though it's mid-tier, because it's 2019 mid-tier compared to 2017, 2016, 2015, whenever one of you guys built your PC, right? But it is significantly weaker than Nvidia's, high-tier graphics cards, essentially, and also the higher-end, AMD CPUs, like the Ryzen 7 series, or especially the Ryzen 9 series, right? So, these consoles are basically what would be 2020's kind of higher-end mid-tier AMD stuff, because they have the RDNA 2 architecture or whatever, which is essentially the next version of AMD stuff, right? That's not even out right now. Like, you, as a PC enthusiast, can't build what's in these consoles right now, right? So that's where, just like my PC though, the problem lies with the high-end market, right? If you're PC Master Race, what you need to understand is that these are not in competition at all. Like, if you are considering buying a console versus building a PC, There's no fucking way that in your mind you're considering buying a $700 graphics card, because that's what everyone's talking about right now. Because Nvidia, you know, just recently, like literally in the last week, all of the hardware YouTubers have released their testing for the RTX 30 series, right? And the RTX 3080 is the new hotness graphics card for the price, right? Like at $700 for how powerful it is, it's considered a steal. But $700 is $200 more than an entire console. So yes, the RTX 3080 is considerably more powerful than the Xbox Series X. Does that matter? No. No, it doesn't matter at all, because if you combine that with, again, if you're not going to bottleneck yourself, if you're building a PC, right, that means you're either going to get one of, like, Intel's i9 series or one of, like, the Ryzen 7s or something to go along, or even a Ryzen 9, which that's, like, you know, you're getting pretty damn high-end at that point, to go along with the graphics card. So you're looking at, like, a $1,500 PC versus a $500 console. Does that sound like that's in the same market? Fuck no. Okay, so don't give me any of your PC Master Race comments. I don't want to hear it. My PC cost $850 to build, and these $500 consoles are more powerful. That's all you need to know as a console person. That's all. That's the only important thing you need to know right now. And I'm salty as fuck about it. Don't get me wrong. Like next year, I am upgrading to a 3080. And then finally, they showed a teaser for God of War Ragnarok. They didn't show anything. But yeah, we knew this was coming. I mean, God of War, that game was really good and sold really well. So of course the sequel was coming. It said 2021 again, so it's got to be holiday 2021. So it's looking like next year is going to have a really fucking good lineup. It's just too bad that they didn't have anything really ready for this year. Then they kind of just showed a gameplay compilation thing at the end. Only thing really missing here was Ratchet and Clank. Even though I'm a huge fan of Ratchet and Clank as well, I haven't cared about the story in Ratchet and Clank since probably Deadlocked. Because, like, the Future series was like a soft reboot, because Ratchet was not the same character at all, and the story took a different direction. And really, I just played them for the gameplay. They were very, very, like, the Future games were still pretty fun. I liked A Crack in Time a lot. I thought it was almost as good as going commando and up your arsenal, right? So, yeah, I mean, I'm still somewhat excited for this. I don't really care about the whole, like, female Ratchet alternate universe thing. You know, it is what it is. It happens, blah, blah, blah. They're trying to keep it interesting somehow. There's a lot of Ratchet and Clank games. They gotta, like, have some kind of hook. The only thing I have to say is I hope it's nothing like the fucking remake. I haven't made that video yet. It will still happen. Absolutely will still happen. I will rant about that remake. The fucking Ratchet and Clank remake was shit. That is the worst remake of all time. I'm gonna say it right here. The worst remake. And that's a pure remake, not like a reboot remake, even though that was kind of like a sort of reboot too, since it like retconned the entire plot of the original game, basically, by twisting it in a new light that sucks. But that's how you ruin a story and a character, is the Ratchet and Clank remake. I'm just gonna say it. Yeah, the gameplay is better than the original, of course it is. The original game didn't even have strafing. I mean, it had strafing with like the jetpack, but it sucked. So basically it didn't have strafing. Let's just say it didn't have strafing. So yeah, I guess to wrap this up, with so few launch window titles, Cyberpunk 2077 is the launch. I mean, it comes out a week after the PS4. That was very smart of both, you know, Sony and I'm assuming Microsoft probably also comes out before Cyberpunk 2077. I'll have to double check. But yeah, Cyberpunk 2077 comes out November 19th, 2020. And the PS4 comes out November 12th. So the big thing here, so I want to talk about briefly the all digital edition. I think we all know what this means. And especially some of you I know are like retro gamers like me. So this is kind of a depressing thing to see. Physical's dying, guys. This is it. I think I'm going to call it right here. And I hope I'm wrong. I don't want to be right on this one. I think this is going to be the last generation with physical copies. Especially if that all digital edition is successful. It's over. If that's a huge price drop too, like $100 difference just taking out the disc tray. Damn, dude. They want to kill physical. They really want to do it. And this is the way to do it, man. It's literally the same specs. So for $400, you get a more powerful PC. I mean, minus all the other things a PC can do, obviously. It can't do nearly as many things as a PC. But as a purely gaming device, it's more powerful than my $850 PC. I don't even know what to say. I don't want to see physical die, dude. I really don't. Because we don't own the rights to any of our digital games. Sadly, it's just something you have to accept at a certain point. There have already been games that have been taken off of digital stores that can never be, downloaded again. Like one of them that comes to mind, though it's actually coming back on Switch, was the Scott Pilgrim game. The Scott Pilgrim game got taken off of, I think, the PS3 and 360, and if it wasn't downloaded, that game was gone forever. Like, you could not re-download it, even if you bought it already. And that can happen with anything, because you don't own the rights to the digital game. And even with physical games, you kind of just own a license to download, because we have to full install all our games these days, Like, it doesn't read off the disc anymore, because it's too slow. So, yeah, dude, the all-digital future's coming. It's sad. I guess if I were to talk about anything else about the console, one thing I don't like about the marketing is the focus on an SSD. It's like, yeah, an SSD is a huge upgrade from the hard drives that we've been stuck with. But on PC, SSDs have been standard for 2 or 3 years. They've been, cheaper. Like, my brother built, well, he didn't build his own PC, but he had his PC built about 6 years ago, right? And 6 years ago, SSDs were pretty expensive. But my 1 terabyte SSD was like, I think like $80 or $90 on Black Friday last year. So it's like, yeah, an SSD, everyone has an SSD now. I don't know, it's just kind of laughable coming from PC, but you will know that that is a huge upgrade. Loading times are instant, man. And the thing is too, I have a newer SSD, and I have an NVMe SSD, which the Xbox Series S also has one. And those are lightning fast. Those are essentially the new boot drives, right? They screw into your motherboard. And that shit is insane. Like, it is so fast, dude. There's no loading. There's no loading. It's funny because games will have stuff on loading screens, like you have to they'll have text. Like Dark Souls has like an item and description or whatever. I can't read shit. Can't even read one line before it's done loading. It loads so fast. So that's gonna be something you guys will be happy about with the upgrade. Other than that, I guess if I were to talk about console wars, like Xbox versus PlayStation, I just don't think Microsoft has anything to sell. I mean, I hate to say it, the Xbox Series X is a little bit more powerful than the PlayStation, but at the end of the day, it's going to be negligible for one reason, and that's the developers are only going to make very marginal differences between two games on multi-platform. You know what I mean? Like, PC is always going to have the highest end settings because they know you can handle it. You have the option to switch to that. When they're optimizing for consoles, do you really think that like 99% of publishers are going to give a shit enough to be like, yeah, totally optimize the textures and lighting 5% better for Xbox? It's like, unless Microsoft pays them, they'll just be like, here's the same version. And here's how I know, okay? I'm not just talking out my ass, right? Look at every, I know IGN used to do a lot of these videos. But anyway, they would always compare the graphical differences between versions of games, right? The PS4 and Xbox One version always looked the same. Exactly the same. I could not tell, man. I mean, if you're like the most graphics hoary PC Master Race guy, you could be like, well, the PS4 version has slightly more refined textures right here. And it's like, no, they look exactly the same. And that's exactly what it's gonna be this gen too, man. Unless it's like a huge power difference, like what the Xbox One X had, right? The Xbox One X was a big upgrade from the Xbox One. There's no fucking way. There's no way. So it's not about graphics, period. Done. Just bury that part of the argument. This is about games, and Microsoft doesn't have the games. They bought a shit ton of studios in the last couple of years. They've showed them off at E3. I think there were 2 E3 presentations, I think 2018 and 2019, where they dedicated a section to all the studios they bought. Have we seen the efforts of those studios yet? No. I mean, they even bought Obsidian, which actually pisses me off. I hate that. Obsidian should not have sold out. That's bullshit, dude. At least we got Outer Worlds before they got bought or whatever. They were set to release that multi-platform. But now Obsidian is tied to Microsoft. Great. But here's the thing, though, Xbox fans. I want you, please answer this for me. Why should you buy an Xbox if all of their exclusives are coming to PC? Why? Please answer that for me. If you can answer that one in a way that makes sense, I'll concede. But PlayStation's exclusives, for the most part, do not come to PC except for ones they pay for timed exclusivity, which timed exclusivity is stupid. Like, I thought Control was a real exclusive because I didn't really look into it and I didn't play it. But Control came to PC recently and it's like, oh, it wasn't exclusive? And then Sony, for some reason, brought Horizon Zero Dawn to PC. That's great for people who never played it. I actually did play it, because I have a PS4. And the game is kind of overrated. I mean, it's still pretty good, but it has a lot of problems. And why is it on PC exactly? That's not a good idea, dude. That's not a good idea. So don't do that, Sony. Microsoft has already barely any reason to get an Xbox. The only legitimate reason that people can say is that a console is more convenient, and right now it's cheaper. Those are both true, but the cheaper part will not be true, in 2 years tops, possibly 1 year, because all of that shit is going to be replaced by the new hardware that releases every single year, and then the old stuff will get cheap. And so eventually you will be able to build a PC for $500 that is the same strength as an Xbox Series X and can do all the things a PC can do, That's what I'm saying, right? So really the answer is still buy a PlayStation, don't buy an Xbox, right? Because Halo Infinite's gonna suck ass, and who cares about Gears of War anymore? And then Microsoft has nothing. Microsoft has nothing. Maybe in 2 years, all those studios they bought will start making good games that are only on Xbox. Only on Xbox, not on PC. Then you might have a reason. But really, the choice is PC and PS5. And possibly the Switch, I guess. I don't know. And that's not a real competition, to be honest. Because there's a lot of people who are just never going to build a PC. So, easy choice, PS5. And it's a steal. It's a steal. At $400, it's a steal, man. It's a steal. I'm just saying. It's ridiculous. You can't convince me that it's not. No amount of fanboyism will tell me, oh no, I could build a PC like that for $400. No, you can't. You literally can't. But you can build a more powerful one for $1,500. Woo! One more thing I wanted to briefly mention before I forget is, I was thinking about this earlier when I was talking to my brother, but I think one of the main reasons that they were able to drop the digital edition $100 for the PS5 is that they're banking on the increased revenue from digital sales, since they're cutting out the middleman. They don't have to pay retail stores, and they don't have to pay to ship copies. There's no additional expense on their part, right? Another thing, too, this kind of ties into that a lot of people are concerned about, is the increased price of retail games, right? Now, they've said this is not going to be standard. I don't know if you should believe that or not. I have my doubts. I give it a year before pretty much every AAA game is up to $70, right? But yeah, this had to happen eventually because of inflation. It's just natural. But the fact that every game is still going to have microtransactions, still gonna have, loot boxes probably. I'm sure loot boxes will start making their return soon. Battle passes, season passes, I literally just made a video on this stuff, right? That's why people are angry about it. Yeah, okay, game development is getting more expensive, of course. You know, everyone's talked about this. But they've made up for that more than enough with DLC. You know, the data is there to back it up. You know, they talk about quarterly all the money they've made from microtransactions. You know, this happens all the time. And it's not even necessary. Like, how the hell is Sony able to make these first-party exclusives that have, like, some of them don't even have DLC. God of War didn't have DLC. It still made a profit. Just selling a $60 game. How is that then? Really? Like, this is what I'm saying. I'm so skeptical about, like, the game development costs. I feel like it's entirely self-inflicted, and it's just completely related to the increased scope of games graphically, and in the case of sandbox games, just making the world bigger for no reason, you know? So yeah, people have a right to be concerned about the increased price, and that's where I think they're going to make up for this, for selling the consoles at a loss. Because there's not a single doubt in my mind that both Microsoft and Sony are selling the console at a loss. Because that's what they've done almost every console generation. Nintendo has been the only one where they actually don't lose money selling the console, right? Sony and Microsoft have always banked on making the money back from games. And yeah, that system has worked. So they're going to keep doing that. Okay, I've droned on long enough. I got to try cutting out, like, yeah, closing thoughts. Good presentation. Makes up for the lack of E3 this year for Sony, anyway. And don't buy a PS5 yet. But it was a good presentation. Just don't buy a PS5 yet unless you really want to play the best possible Cyberpunk experience for $500. Yeah, that's the thing, right? Because the best possible Cyberpunk experience would probably be more like $2,000 if you get a RTX 3090. You maniac. You rich maniac. I'm jealous. Yeah, okay, so tell me what you think of the video. Give it a like, subscribe, blah, 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 right? And, gonna be reviewing the Dragon's Dogma anime next. Hopefully that video comes out Monday. And then, yeah, I'm gonna take a break from making videos for a few days. And hopefully we'll release that Metroid Prime video before Crash 4 comes out. Then I'm reviewing Crash 4. Then it's all horror games for October, plus maybe Resident Evil 5. I know it's not a horror game, but it's October. You know, Resident Evil, right? Silent Hill 2, though. That's the big one. That's one of my favorite games ever. So I better fucking do a good video. Hold me to that, guys. Alright, see you next time.